Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rational Female podcast. And today we have a very great guest, Nick Buckley. He recently ran for MP for Gordon and Denton. I believe that's the correct pronunciation in Manchester. And he is a member of the Advanced UK Party. But today we're mainly going to be talking about feminism and his book, Feminism, Myths and Lies. If that's the correct title, I should be able to remember this. So yeah, a few years ago we spoke on his channel, and now today we're going to be speaking again. So Nick, I'd like to start by asking, what compelled you to write this book, Feminism, Myths and Lies?
It was the first. It was the only book I wrote for me. I actually wanted to write the book. I actually wanted to do the research. I wanted to expand my knowledge on a topic that I had a deep feeling that I thought was wrong and negative for society. And it's okay holding those positions, but if you're not basing it on anything, then it's probably, there's a good chance you're going to be wrong. So that's why I wrote the book. I had some pre ideas of where I think feminism had gone wrong and why it was wrong, and it wasn't giving it anything positive to society. And I thought, right, let me write a book. What's the title going to be, and how do I do the chapters? And each chapter then led me into research. So the history of feminism, what are the benefits of feminism, and I went through each chapter, and I thoroughly enjoyed writing the book. It didn't sell that well, comparing it to my other books I've wrote, but again, I wrote it for me.
No, that's great. Yeah. So I've read quite a few books on feminism. And what I like about your book is it just critiques pretty much all of it from what I recall. And there's another good book I've read, which I would say is a bit similar, called The Feminist Lie, but it's I would say a bit angrier in tone. It's more kind of a pro MRA book. But yeah, you talk a lot about your experiences with feminism, and you talk about what you have seen. So would you say that feminism historically has always been a quite angry and bitter, antagonist, misandric movement, or do you think feminism was ever positive?
No, I think feminism has never changed. I think it's exactly how it was meant to be. Over history, they've just developed better PR to whitewash what happened in the past. So let's start with the foundations of feminism. It basically came out of the anti-slavery movement in America. We had middle-class posh women, white women in America and the UK fighting the slavery movement. And when that ended, they thought to themselves, oh, we did quite well there, and those people were oppressed and we were the saviors. I wonder if we're oppressed. And that's where the feminist movement came from. And then very shortly after that, there was a gentleman called Karl Marx who published his theory on oppression and things. And then suddenly the feminists took on a lot of Marxist ideology, and that's where feminism started almost 200 years ago. People think it started, 100 years ago with the rights for women to vote. It didn't. It started well before that. And then we have the myths around votes for women, as if we were stopping women from voting. And it was like, basically, working class men didn't have the vote. Most working class men got the vote at the end of the First World War, when millions of us died. We finally got the right to vote. Women who didn't have to fight waited 10 years. They waited 10 years. That's all it was between all men getting the vote and all women getting the vote. 10 years. And feminists portray that story as if it was century-long battle and the persecution of women. And it's like, no, everybody's been treated unfairly in history. Everybody. And women were treated unfairly, but so were all men. But a 10-year period isn't enough to claim victimhood status. And then we also seem to forget that there was more women in the UK who were opposed to women getting the vote. The suffragists, not the suffragists, the
Anti-suffragist movement,
yeah, they had tens of thousands of members. The suffragette movement had no more than 2,000-3,000 members. So the women who didn't want the vote way outnumbered the women who wanted to vote. And then we talk about the suffragettes, who were violent domestic terrorists. They didn't get women to vote in this country. It was the sensible suffragists. They're two different organizations. They used political power and persuasion, run by a woman called Fawcett, a lady called
Oh,
Fawcett.
is that something for Millicent Fawcett? I think I
Yes,
know the name.
yeah, definitely Fawcett was her surname. Wonderful lady. She was the first woman to get a statue in Parliament Square. She and her organisation got women to vote through pressure, lobbying, and the democratic process. The suffragettes, many historians agree, they delayed women getting the vote because governments cannot be seen to give in to domestic terrorists. Because what does that do? That encourages more domestic terrorism from other groups. So all that history has been rewritten. And the suffragettes as well, planting bombs, they killed at least 4 men, injured hundreds of people, including women and children, with their bombs. They were the Antifa of yesteryear. That's what the suffragettes were. Crazy far left lunatics. The daughters of the woman who set up the suffragettes, one of them went to Australia and set up the Communist League in Australia. So that's the type of people they were. And then my personal experience fed into it. And I write about it in the book. I'll give you 2 examples that I can remember off the top of my head. The first one was about 6 or 7. I went swimming with primary school. We used to go every week. And I had longish hair at the time. It was trendy in the early 70s. And I didn't want to get my hair wet. So I took my sister's swimming cap, a plastic cap that goes on your head really tight. And I wore that to keep my hair dry. And my female teacher saw that, stopped the whole class, pointed to me, gave me 100 house points, and said that was fantastic of me to use a girl's hat to keep my hair dry, because it's not just girls you worry about. And she started giving us all a lecture in the early 70s about gender roles and gave me 100 house points. And that stuck with me, because I remember thinking, what are you talking about? And then roll on another 20 years, maybe 15 years. I was in my late teens, and one of my, I won't go into too much detail, but a family member, her and her husbands have separated, and he wants to see the kids. And another family member, another female family member, told this other female family member, when he comes and knocks on your door next to pick the kids up and you don't want him to take them, and he was only take them out for the day, and you don't want him to, when you open the door, rip open your blouse and start screaming so the neighbors come out, then accuse him of rape. And I'm in my teens going, that's going to be me. That's going to be me trying to pick my kids up at some point. If I ever, get married, have children, all fall, that's going to be me. Where women are telling other women to claim rape and scream rape to punish a man.
Sorry, quick comment. Can you say grape just because of the algorithm?
Yeah. Yep. So, so it was like, that's going to be me in the future. And that, I think late teens onwards was when I really started thinking about the over feminization of society, feminism in general, and the demonization of men.
Okay, so that's very well said. Just a quick comment not related to this. I tried to put a link to your book, and it says YouTube doesn't support comments on private videos, which kind of made me freak out slightly. This says we are live, and I can see there are people watching. So if people are, because yesterday I did a stream and nobody commented in the chat. So if people are struggling to comment, then that might be why. I have, wait a minute. The show comments on stage sign is checked off. Okay. Oh, I'm really confused. Okay. Right. Oh, never mind. Back to this.
This is why I never do lives, because I wouldn't know what to do when it all goes wrong.
Yeah, well, no, we're doing fine. We're doing fine. Unfortunately, just the comment thing seems to be off. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's really sick how modern society now has created this feminization of men and this anti-male rhetoric, and that is why I do what I do. You mentioned the suffragettes, and a lot of people do think the suffragettes were English heroes. I want to ask, have you read the book The Suffragette Bombers by Simon Webb?
I haven't read that book, but I did research into the bombing by the suffragettes for writing the book.
Okay. Yeah, because Simon Webb has a good book, which is what I learned about the suffragettes from. And yeah, the suffragettes, they were not, these benign, great women who were all pro-female. They were very much terrorists. They were very disruptive. And as you mentioned, Mary, a lot of women were very against the UK suffrage
Mm.
movement. And Mary Augusta Ward, she was the leader. Well, she wasn't. Yeah, she was the leader of the UK anti-suffrage movement. But yeah, no, a lot of people don't know this stuff. It's very, very interesting. So I want to ask you now, can you tell me more? Because you gave a very interesting story. And I was briefly distracted by this comments nonsense. But can you give us a brief, kind of a brief tale of a very, very bad experience that you have had with feminism or feminists in general?
Um, well, I can give you the latest one. So, the last few weeks, I've been fighting a by-election in Gorton and Denton, as you mentioned, and I was heavily attacked online for 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 my critique of OnlyFans. Now, people might be going, "Oh, OnlyFans, yeah, the prostitution site." Let's be honest; they're not OnlyFans models; they're OnlyFans prostitutes, and we need to be honest with people. And because they were my comments online, I was attacked by not only just feminists, but also many other women who wouldn't class themselves as feminists. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. 30 years ago, I'd have been in trouble for using prostitutes. And now I'm standing in an election. Roll on 30 years. I'm now being attacked for not wanting our young women to be promoted into prostitution, online prostitution. So what that really was about was two things. First of all, it was the mindset of I don't know, is it many women? Is it some women? I don't know. Where they seem to think an attack on one is an attack on all. You mentioned women. You must be attacking all women. Therefore, I must defend all women and attack you. And then there was another section of women who were basically Reform UK supporters who used this as an excuse to attack me, to damage me because I was standing against them in an election. And their motivation was votes. I don't mind if young British girls damage themselves and ruin their life in prostitution, as long as we can stop Nick taking votes off us. So both ways you look at it, two different people attacking me, but both of them come from the feminist standpoint. And both of them really think they're doing the right thing and protecting women. But when you drill under the cover of it, you realize both of them are sacrificing the well-being of young British women for their own benefit, which is virtue signaling, which is extra votes, which is trying to be a feminazi. Whatever they're doing it for, they're sacrificing the lives of young women in this country to enter a profession that we all know is extremely damaging. I've worked with prostitutes, male and female prostitutes. They're empty shells. They're empty shells because everything decent about them, all their self-respect, their self-confidence, their self-worth has been ripped out of them through sex work. And we see it when we look at Bonnie Blue, the most famous OnlyFans model prostitute. I slept with 1,000, allegedly slept with 1,000 men in a day. You see her give interviews, she's smiling, but all you've got to do is look at her eyes. Her eyes are dead. She's basically ruined herself forever. No prospects of getting married now. I know her husband's divorced her, but no prospects of serious long-term partners. The partners she can attract now will be the worst of men. And if she ever has children, what abuse are they going to have in society when all their friends have to do is click Bonnie Blue online and see what their mum got up to? So that's what I was fighting against. But because I was fighting against women, I'm now a misogynist. That's how things have warped in our society, mainly down to feminism.
Yeah, that was very, very interesting stuff. And I think it's really interesting how, and as you're probably aware, feminism is very, very split on the subjects of sex work and prostitution, which happened in the kind of 1970s and 80s. So you had a lot of feminists like Helen Gully Brown who were very pro this idea of female sexual liberty and sexual liberation. And then you had the more radical feminists like Andrea Dworkin and Catherine McKinnon, who were
Mm.
saying that, all sex between a man and a woman is basically rape. So that's quite sick. I'd like to ask two questions. So firstly, do you think that prostitution should be legal or decriminalized? And secondly, do you think that OnlyFans should be banned?
Probably no and no.
Okay.
I want a small state. I don't want the state involved in my life, involved in your life. We need a state, but it has to be tiny. And again, just because I think prostitution damages people, who am I to make that choice? So therefore, I'm against us promoting it. My comments were really about the promotion of OnlyFans. You look at any major newspaper, almost every week they've got a story. This secretary, this police officer, this businesswoman has given up their job. Now they're on OnlyFans earning £40,000 a week. It's a fantastic It's like you're advertising and promoting prostitution. So I don't want to ban it, but I would like to give communities and society the opportunity to start recreating social shame so we can keep each other in check. And if people want to go against societal norms and traditions, then they can do that, but they'll pay a price for that. And those societies will work that out between themselves. So no, I don't want to ban it. I don't want to get the law involved in it. And I don't want to start banning sites offline, because even though that sounds easy in a solution, the second we allow the government to, let's say, ban OnlyFans, the following month, they'll ban something I don't want them to ban. They'll ban YouTube, they'll ban Twitter. So I'm sick of us giving power to the government to run our lives. So no, I wouldn't ban any of it.
But you don't think prostitution should be illegal?
No.
Okay, interesting.
I think if somebody wants to be a prostitute, we should as a society, we should let them know that it's, first of all, it's a very damaging career you're going into, and it's going to damage you, your prospects, your family, your children. You're going to be looked down upon in society as well. But if you still want to do it, who am I to make it illegal, to tell you to do something that isn't damaging anybody else?
Sorry, my question was, should prostitution be legal, not illegal?
It should be neither.
Okay.
Because if you say should it be legal, that means we have the government telling us it's legal. I don't want them telling us it's legal, but I also don't want the government telling us it's illegal. I think they need to keep out of it, keep out of our lives. Unless it's children, obviously, unless it's under 18s, different subject altogether.
Okay. No, I kind of agree. I mean, I think prostitution should be decriminalized, largely because I think it should be off the black market. And I think if people are going to do that, I prefer that they're at least protected and they have, worker rights and all that. But I have more kind of liberal leaning views on these things. So I don't think they're good things. But I also think, for example, there are a lot of things out there that are very bad for people, like alcohol or corn, PORN, or even social media, but I don't advocate for banning these things either. So I'd like to ask you, because you mentioned you're very pro small governments, and I do want to talk a little bit about your kind of political views, because that's very interesting. So you recently, you went against the Green Party, and the Green Party, as I should be talking about in the next podcast episode, they want to make misogyny a hate crime. So what are your thoughts on the Green Party, on their recent win with Hannah Spencer? That's her name, I believe. Why do you think the Green Party won? And what do you think of their general policies regarding feminism?
Let's go back to misogyny. Like, I wrote about this in the book. I've looked at lots of social scientists investigating misogyny. I quote the reports in the book. They've never discovered any misogyny ever in men. In fact, they find the opposite. They find that men put women ahead of other men. Now, if you're looking for misandry, they find misandry in most women, because most women will put the interests of other women ahead of most men. So to define misogyny is basically, it's another hate crime, isn't it? It's hurty words. And we will define what misogyny is, because we'll change that definition anytime we want, so we can punish you and make you do as you're told. That's what the word misogyny is. The word used to be sexism. So that's what we had through most of my adult life, sexism. But suddenly men started using the word sexism against women because women are sexist as well. And then the feminists didn't like that. We need to stop using the word sexist because they're using it against us now. We need to create a word that men can never appropriate. So they came up with misogyny. So that's that. What's the second part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to know. So, what are your thoughts on the Green Party's
Green
general,
Party. Yeah.
their policies regarding, because they want to make misogyny a hate crime, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. But again, so do Labour as well. This is all just trying to control our speech. If they can control our speech, they can control what we think, what we say, and what we do. It's part of the control of the people. Green Party themselves are nutcases. They've always been nutcases. But that doesn't mean the people who vote for them are nutcases, because they're not. So the Green Party won in Gorton and Denton because of two things. First of all, the Muslim vote. So they ran on the platform of Free Gaza. The Labour Party lost half of their vote in this election because they're run by a Jew or someone who's married a Jew with Jewish children who is also trying to keep links with Israel. So he's not good enough. So they've all left Labour because of that and gone to the Greens. And also the Green Party with the Free Palestine vote had no competition because George Galloway's party, which is another Islamist party, they stepped down in Gorton and said to everybody, and made it public, said it on TV, we want you to vote for the Greens because the next election, the Greens are going to stand down for us. So they're making deals between themselves, which is perfectly acceptable. It's all legal. So that's why the Greens won. The Greens won on the platform of Free Palestine. They've now become a radical Islamist party. But two things will happen now with the Greens. It's either one or the other. They will either become a proper Islamist party. I think this is a Trojan horse takeover of the party by the radical Islamists, and they will end up kicking out, again, the gay Jew who's running the Green Party. They'll kick out people like Hannah Spencer, a modern-minded working woman. They'll kick her out, and it'll become a radical Islamist party. And the name's perfect, isn't it? The Green Party, the colour of Islam. So that'll either happen, or the party will disintegrate, because you cannot have blue-haired trans women on pride marches waving trans flags right next to radical Islamists who want to throw gay people off buildings. you can't have both of them in the same party. So
you can't.
So the Green Party will either implode and disappear, or the radical Islamists will take it over. And if you want to see what happens when these two groups of people merge, you only have to look at 1979 Iran, where the socialist far left revolution and support of the Ayatollah to get the Muslim vote on board, when they won, the Ayatollah killed them all, hung them by cranes until they're all dead. And then we had an Islamic Republic. We've got precedents of when radical Islamists have to face off far left lunatics. There's only ever one winner.
Isn't it ridiculously ironic how the people who claim to support this allegedly peaceful and tolerant religion would be killed if they lived in an Islamic theocracy? I really have not been able to get my head around it for the past decade that I've been, trying to tell people, look, guys, this is not a good religion. That's God. Well, I'd like to ask, so what do you think generally, because you're a politician yourself. What is your general view on the influence of feminism in modern politics, and how do you think that feminism has influenced a lot of the major UK political parties?
Oh, they aim to take over society, and they achieve that aim. We now live in a feminist society. Most people, especially women as well, but lots of men who say, "Oh, I'm not a feminist," they are. They just don't know they are, because they believe in all the different aspects of feminism, but it's become mainstream. It's become it's become the norm. It's become the political norm. Most people now are feminists, and the takeovers happen very, very slowly. But so the question is why? Why did it happen? It didn't happen because of feminism itself. It happened because of men. It happened because of technology. That's why this has happened. So it wasn't the suffragettes blowing up churches and throwing axes at MPs, and that's what's happened in the past. Someone threw an axe. A suffragette threw an axe at Winston Churchill. Did you know that? It
No, I
missed
didn't.
him. It missed him and hit another MP in the ear.
Oh, Jesus.
So that wasn't what changed. That's what didn't turn into a feminist society. It was things like the birth control pill, invented by 4 men. It was the invention of labor-saving devices in the home, which then, in with the pill, allowed women to go into the workforce. Men didn't stop women working ever. Most working class women have always worked for centuries, millennia, because if those women didn't work, everybody would have starved to death. So, the myth of women didn't work, well, women did work. You just look at any book from Victorian times, women were working hard, children were working hard. It was the only way to stop starving to death. So then women went into the workforce en masse because of labor saving goods at home and the pill, because they could control their reproduction cycle.
Yeah.
Once we had the women in the workforce, female trait, they started fighting for an environment that they liked, and so they should. So they went into male-dominated workforces and slowly over time changed it to be more appealing to women. And because men always put women ahead of themselves, men allowed those environments to be changed. And so they became over-feminized. And then feminist traits became the new traits, such as compassion, tolerance, equity. And then we started getting things like health and safety laws. Well, yeah, who in modern society now can disagree with health and safety laws? Well, lots of men can, because men have been designed to take risks to achieve a bigger outcome. But suddenly health and safety said, you can't use that ladder. It takes 3 of you now to use a ladder because 2 men have to hold it. So costs started going up. And then we started looking at HR departments. Mr. Jenkins, you used a word that women in the office didn't like. No one said anything for the last 500 years, mate, in this office. So we started getting all those over-feminized traits coming through of being kind, considerate. So women work more on the basis of social acceptance, fairness, keeping the peace. But men work on merit and work on hierarchy. A man can walk into a room full of strange men, and within 10 minutes, he knows where he stands in the pecking order in that room, because men will automatically sort themselves out physically, mentally, competently, depending what it needs to be done at that time. Women take a lot longer. They have to design and create cliques, so their little group is more powerful than the other group. They're looking for allies. That's why we get allies for everything, for LGBT rubbish, for this, for that. I'm an ally. I'm an ally. That's where all that came from. That's what women do: create allies. And none of this is right, and none of this is wrong. We're just different creatures. And again, in the book, I write a whole chapter on our different biology, physically and mentally, about we're the same creature, but we're some ways we're very similar, some ways we're very different. And if you put different people in different circumstances, you'll get different outcomes. And so I did a whole chapter of that in the book. But then we've rolled on, now men have become extremely over feminized. The amount of young men I basically take the mickey out of if I'm in a pub when they admit they moisturize and get manicures, and I'm going, pass me a bucket, I'm going to throw up. You get professional manicures and you moisturize. It's like, oh, give me a break, mate. So I'm harsh on men, but when they come out with that rubbish, and other men are going, oh yeah, I get pedicures as well, and then it's like, oh Jesus. So that's how feminized we've become, and they all think this is normal. They think this is normal, and it's not. And then we have to ask ourselves: is any of this beneficial to society? And people, the feminists would argue, yes, look how many women now in top positions, and we've had female prime ministers, and it's like, that's all great, but let's look at a bit more base level. Let's look at, in the last 60 years, every decade, women in the UK report that they're more unhappy than the previous decade. This has been going on for 60, 70 years. The more feminist policies we get, the more feminist society we get, the more women do better in everything some women think they should be doing better in, the more unhappy women report, self-reporting. We have 20% of women in the UK, all women in the UK, 20% of on antidepressants. So how successful has feminism been for women? And then let's look at men. So 5,000 men a year kill themselves in the UK every year. 5,000. If that was anybody else, there'd be a national outcry. If 5,000 gay people kill themselves every year, if 5,000 disabled people kill themselves every year, or black women, or Hindus, or Jews, if another group at that level killed themselves every year, there would be there'd be government inquiries, there'd be billions of pounds being, but just men. 5,000 men kill themselves every year. I worked out in my book that it's something like 14 men a day kill themselves over relationship breakdown. 14 men a day. But men are the baddies, by the way. And then look at the outcomes of men. Men are more likely to be rough sleepers, homeless, unemployed, alcoholics, drug addicts, to be assaulted, to be murdered. And it's like, where are the benefits society in men? And I don't want life to be hard for men. And I'm sick of men who moan. Life's hard, get over it, do better. That's my advice to men. But to then be told that you've got privilege, then to be told this world was set up by men for men. It goes, no, it wasn't. Who are all the people who die in wars? In the book, again, I also talk about another report. They analysed European kings and queens over a 600-700 year period about who started the most wars. And it was queens.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
Queens started more wars and conquered more new land than kings ever did in Europe over 600-700 year period. So men have got it tough in several ways now. And again, I'm not making excuses for men. I don't think men deserve anyone's sympathy, but this is what I think. Men used to know where they stood in life. I'm the protector and the provider. I'll get a wife, I'll have children, I protect them, and I go out and bring home the bacon, basically. Then with the creation of feminism and women entering the workforce, it was like, right, me and my wife work now, and sometimes my wife earns more than me, and that hits a man's pride, especially when he's also then unemployed. Men are quite happy partnering with a woman who earns less than him or earns nothing.
Yeah.
Women find it really difficult to have a partner who earns less than them because they're designed to want a man who'll provide the most. Men are willing to take on a woman with nothing because all they want is children. So even those dynamics don't work in men's favor. So men don't know what their role is now in society. A lot of the manual jobs are gone. So men who are not academic, there's no jobs for them. They're failing jobs. A man in the 1950s, even a working class man who worked with his hands, could afford to buy a house, have a wife who stayed at home with 3 children. Now, 2 middle class people can hardly afford that. So men have lost their whole place in society, don't know who they are, don't know what their role is, and are struggling, and are really struggling with mental health, alcohol, drugs, violence, crime. I don't know what the answer is. That's probably a discussion for another day. I don't know what the answer's for. But again, all those things are going wrong for men. And at the same time, we're being told, and you're still the problem, pal.
Yeah. Wow. So you said some very, very interesting things. So I'd like to start off by asking, so we both know that historically women always worked, and a lot of anti-feminists or people who criticize feminism have said that. So do you think that women working historically was the same as this modern push of women in the workplace in the kind of post second wave feminist period? Do you think it's the same thing? Because I'm guessing, I mean, I don't know, but are you against women working in general, or is it just more this push to have more women in the modern workforce that you find fault with?
Yeah. So my philosophy is always, I don't want to stop people doing what they want to do.
Okay.
Even if it's damaging to them, I don't want to stop people doing what. Who am I to tell people what they can and can't do? So I don't want to be a tyrant. Now, society can, social norms, social traditions, but let's look at women working. So women have always worked, and I said before, working class women have always worked because they had to. It wasn't an option. It wasn't like, oh, darling, I'm going to the mill today. It's like, well, if I don't get to the mill today, there's no food, is there, tomorrow? So women had to work. That's how tough our lives were. Now, let's look at modern women working. Again, fine. But the whole message has changed now. So women used to go out to work because they had to, not because they wanted to, or were pressured into working for social status or whatever. They had to work to survive. That's a lot different to today, where women are told, you're not really a successful modern woman unless you have a career. And if you're thinking of having children, oh, what type of woman are you? You're one of those low class women who want to follow nature and raise children and be semi-divine and have new life come out of you, which is absolutely amazing, which every man I've ever had a conversation with thinks is jealous and thinks women are semi-divine for being able to do that. And we're telling women that's not important. And once you have children, oh, get back to work, love. Dump your newborn baby with someone you don't know and pay them and get back to the grindstone. If you had to create a capitalist dystopia, well, we've created that, haven't we? We've convinced women that the most important thing is to earn money for the capitalist system, abandon their children, not raise their children. In fact, do a poor job part-time raising their children. Let strangers look after your children and sometimes abuse them. And we're telling women, you go, girl. You're a modern, powerful, independent woman. We've sold women a lie. Feminists sold women a lie, and we keep lying to women now. In the UK, over half of all women over 30 don't have children. And it's like,
Mm.
and we wonder why we've got a population decline. Let's go back to wonder why women are unhappy. This might be controversial to some people, but women are built to have children. Their whole biology, their hormones, everything inside a woman is for them to give birth, to have children, to keep the species. On the flip side, men's duty is to always be horny and always want to have sex with women. That's their biological need. And we keep making women go against their biological clock, their biological need to have children. And you wonder why they're unhappy. They're unhappy just like a polar bear you take from the North Pole and you stick in a zoo. And you wonder why they're happy and depressed, because they were never meant to be there. They were never meant to do that. They were meant to do what they were meant to do. And for women, it's to have children and raise them and have a family and have babies look into your eyes. That babies can focus something like 18 inches when they're born, or a few days after they're born. And the reason why it's 18 inches or something like 18 inches is that's the distance from the breast to the mother's eyes. It's so the baby stares into its mother's eyes while it's breastfeeding. Everything's been designed for this. And the amount of successful mums I know, solicitors, doctors, people like that, and they, when I have this conversation with them, after they let their defenses down and say, you're telling me I'm a bad mum. No, I'm not saying you're a bad mum. And they have the conversation, they all admit, I wish I'd have stayed at home and raised my children. I wish I could have stayed at home. I couldn't afford it. And that's always, the reason. It's probably a valid reason. I couldn't afford it. But 70 years ago, all women could afford it. So we've just sold women a lie. And that's what I dislike about feminism, was they sold them a lie. If people have the truth and then make choices that damage them later on, well, welcome to personal responsibility. But when we've sold them a lie and then they get to 35, 40, no children, and you see him on TikTok and Instagram crying, I'm lonely, I've not got a man, I've got no children, I've got 2 cats. It's too late for me now to have children. Why didn't anyone tell me the meaning of life is to have children? I'm never going to have grandchildren. I've got no one to look. And it upsets me. It upsets me that here's a lovely woman, a British woman that we've, just like the prostitution, we've allowed them to damage their own lives because we've lied to them again and again and again. And all I want is the best for my people. And we give them the information and they can make their own choices. But lying to our people just isn't a long-term strategy.
Yeah, no, that was very well said. Yeah, so there's a very good book that I've read. It's one of my favorite fiction novels called I Don't Know How She Does It. And it's about one of these mothers you mentioned who she's very financially successful. She has a husband and 2 kids. And honestly, she just doesn't want it. She just wants to be with her kids. So because I want to make it a big point as well. Like I personally, I'm not against women having careers, but I'm against this feminist view that women can have it all. And I think women who become very successful, they usually have to either prioritize their career or prioritize having a family. And I think women who do want to prioritize a career, like for example, the computer scientist Grace Hopper, she was a very successful computer scientist and she was not a feminist, she was just a mathematician. And she didn't have children, but I think she just chose not to. She chose to prioritize her career. The same with Ayn Rand, the philosopher, no children, but again, a successful woman. Rosalind Franklin was a chemist. So there were women who decided to become successful, but these are outlier females, and the average female wants to be a mother. I want to ask as well. So in your book, you praise Margaret Thatcher, and I believe you mentioned her as one of the best prime ministers in your lifetime. The Conservative Party has had 4 female prime ministers, 4 female leaders, and the Labour Party has had 0. So why do you think that? Why do you praise Thatcher as a leader? And because she was a woman and she's very hated by the feminists. So why do you think? Yeah, there's a lot of right wing actual female leaders as well, like Georgia Maloney or the lady. There's quite a few in Europe. There's a lady in Japan. So what are your thoughts on this?
So Thatcher wasn't perfect, and Thatcher made some mistakes because she was human. So people will go, oh, Thatcher, she did it. I know she made some mistakes, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about here was a woman who came through a male-dominated political profession where there was no such thing as DEI. There was no such thing as, let's push a woman forward to make us look good. She fought tooth and nail to get where she got to. And she became leader of the Tory party because an opportunity arose to take down the current leader, and nobody else had the courage to take on that fight. So she entered the ring as the outsider because no one else had the bottle to do it. And she won and became leader and then went on to win the general election. She was tough. She was a tough cookie. She didn't take crap off anyone. She knew she had a vision, right or wrong. She had a vision. She didn't listen to opinion polls, and she went, this is what I'm going to do for the country. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. And that was her message. She was a hell of a leader. And then what happened after that was we got Liz Truss and we got Theresa May.
Theresa May, yeah.
Both of those were DEI hires. Only got to the top of politics because they were pushing women, and only both of them got to be prime minister because they tapped into, and both did it on purpose, they tapped into the imagery of Margaret Thatcher. And people went, oh, Margaret Thatcher was once in a lifetime prime minister. We might have another Margaret Thatcher here. There's only one Margaret Thatcher. So let's stop pretending that just because you're a Tory leader doesn't make you a Margaret Thatcher because you're a woman. So those 2 females failed, and now we have Kemi Badenoch, who will also fail. She's only an interim leader of the Tory party. Whoever was going to take over after that defeat was only ever going to be a caretaker manager to take the crap until the Tories get over the bad reputation. Then somebody else clean will come along and lead them into the general election and maybe to success at a future date. Why haven't the Labour ever had a female prime minister? Good question. They've never had an elected female leader. They've had a female leader in opposition when I think John Smith died, but she was appointed, wasn't elected. So they've got a problem. Well, have they got a problem? I really don't know, because if just because you don't have a female leader doesn't mean you're misogynistic. It just means you think there's men there better than that woman. And that could be possibly true. The next leader of the Labour Party, I'd put money on Angela Rayner. When Keir Starmer falls this year, probably, and if Andy Burnham can't get back to Parliament, my money would be on Angela Rayner, mainly because she's a woman and Labour are dying to be able to have a woman because they play identity politics. Now, other leaders across the world, Japan doesn't play identity politics. The Meloni in Italy is a right-wing politician. They got that. Le Pen in France. That's also nepotism as well, because she was the daughter of the last leader and stuff like that. But they get there on merit. They're tough as cookies. So women can lead. But again, DEI has damaged women's reputation. For women, black people, Asian people, because anybody now who gets a position of power, me and many other people go, I wonder how she got there. Did she get there because she's a woman? No one ever said that about Thatcher, because those things didn't happen then. So again, feminism, DEI, has damaged the reputation of women. Anti-racism has damaged the reputation of black people, because a black person now successful, we go, I wonder how they got there. They're DEI higher. Well, it could be the fact they got there because they were the best. But no one knows that anymore now, because we don't live in a society that promotes on merit. We promote sometimes on identity politics. So these schemes that we think are helping are not helping. They're damaging the reputation of the individuals who should have got there on merit. But yeah, I've no problem with women being leaders of nations. We've had fantastic queens and emperors across time. You know, some of our greatest monarchs have been women. We're looking at Elizabeth I, Elizabeth II, Queen Victoria. So
Yeah,
I know for a fact women can lead.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. It's funny because I'm a woman, I'm half black and half Asian. And yeah, I'm very against identity politics. We've talked a bit, you mentioned this idea of this victim mindset, people thinking I'm a victim. You know, life is very, very hard. You know, I've had a hard life. I'm sure you've had a hard life. A lot of people have very hard lives. And the left, it seems now, they seem to be promoting this idea of everyone's a victim and I should feel sorry for myself. And you know, a lot of people have been through seriously tough things, but you just get on with it. That's life. You get support, you get help. And this country, I think anyway, is very good at supporting people. We've got a very good welfare system. And I don't know, I think this country has very, very good kind of social safety. We mentioned this before the live stream started. I'd actually like to know you publicly say your thoughts on the Social Democratic Party, the SDP, because they're a party that I have personally found favor with. And yeah, I think they look like a very nice party for people who are a bit more left-leaning, but very anti-woke. So what are your thoughts on the SDP?
So the SDP came out of the 1980s. They made it big in the 1980s, and then they sort of disappeared off the scene, and now they're just a small party now. I've got many friends in the SDP, and the leader of the SDP, a gentleman called William Coulston, I think that's his surname. Great guy, very clever. You read his policies and you go, I'll have some of that. It's a party I recommend to people. I have done it for several years now. I've spoken at some of their meetings. I've been in elections with them. Yeah, if you're looking at parties and that's the one that stands out to you, I would say, well, that's probably the one you need to join.
Thank you. So anyway, back to the feminist discourse. So I want to ask now, do you think the birth control was...
Can I just jump in there? Let me transfer the question you mentioned a minute ago about victimhood. Yeah. So my explanation for victimhood is this. we now give people gold-plated excuses of why they fail, why they're not successful as they think they should be. So internally, they're thinking, right, I didn't get that promotion, I didn't get treated well in that shop, or whatever the issue is. It's either my fault, in which case I need to improve me. I need to work harder, be a nicer person, use better manners, be more friendly, or it's external factors. And most people will go, well, it can't be me because I'm bloody perfect. It must be external factors. It must be racism. It must be sexism. It must be Islamophobia. And it stops us looking internally and trying to be a better person so those negative incidents don't happen in the future. That's all that is. It's passing the blame to society, not trying to be a better person yourself.
Yeah, because the UK, as far as I'm aware, is very, very much not a racist or
Mm.
sexist country. I do think, of course, there are legitimate cases of racism, but in this country, I wouldn't say this country is a racist country. So I want to ask now, do you think that birth control was a negative invention?
Oh, good question. I've never given it any thought for that question.
Because
Like
you
everything,
mentioned birth control earlier as one of the
yeah,
reasons why more women were in the workforce, birth control and the inventions of kitchen appliances, which
yeah,
I've also talked about, and this is what led to more women in the workforce.
yeah.
Wow.
I get that. I've not got a decision on if it was a good thing on the whole or a bad thing on the whole. It has good bits, it has negative bits. So the negative bits will be messing with women's reproduction cycle hormones. I know lots of young women now refuse to take the pill because they say, and the generation before them are saying, it just messes me up, messes my head up, it messes this up, because these are natural cycles that suddenly we're messing with, stopping. And I don't know how it all works, but so women now are saying it messes me up. So that can't be a good thing. A woman being able to control her body to a certain extent is probably a good thing. We used to have women who would, have 10, 12. My granny had 17 children.
Wow.
Now, was that a good thing or a bad thing? I've no idea. But is it a bad thing for women to be able to control that? Well, I would say that's probably a good thing. But like most choices in life, you rarely get a 100% good choice versus a 100% bad choice. What you're trying to do all the time is you're trying to pick the least worst choice available, because everything has consequences and has unintended consequences, and everybody's life is different from one day to the next, never mind from person to person. So again, I said exactly the same thing for prostitution. Let's give people the truthful information, then they can make choices themselves. I want us making choices about our lives. I'm a big believer in personal responsibility, but you only can make the best choices when you're given accurate information, or information that's the most accurate at that moment in time. Things can change, things can be developed, new information can come out, and then you go, oh, yeah, I made a mistake there only because this information wasn't available. Then I get all that, but let's get people the information about the birth control pills, things like that, and let's give people the responsibility to make decisions for them in their lives.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there's also one thing I'd like to cycle back to. So you mentioned that modern feminism has led to a very capitalist dystopia. The irony of this is that feminism was historically a Marxist movement. It
Yeah.
bore out a very leftist thinking, and feminists are always criticizing capitalism. I personally do not consider myself anti-capitalism. I'm against neoliberalism, but I would say I'm pro what's known as welfare capitalism or social democracy. So I do support social democracy, which is what the SDP also supports. So a capitalist society with social safety nets and a mixed economy. That's my view anyway. So are you personally against women choosing to have careers, or do you think that it's again down to personal choice? Do you think that motherhood is the most important thing for women? Because there are women out there as well who don't necessarily want to have children. There are women who maybe for a personal decision, they just don't want children at all. And that's
Mm.
their
I think motherhood is the most important thing women can do.
okay.
Now, again, That's just my opinion. I wouldn't force women to have children. And I think that this is the same thing. This is the theme through this. I'm saying people should make personal choices about how they want to live their life. And then live with the consequences of those actions. And having children and not having children, again, brings benefits, joys, but also negative outcomes as well. And each individual, only they can make the best decision for their life. I don't want the government involved, and I don't want me involved in your life either. That doesn't mean I don't have a say. That doesn't mean I don't have an opinion, as in, oh, I think women are doing the wrong thing on this particular matter. Well, I'm entitled to have my opinion and my say. But on the flip side of that, no one has to listen to me, but I have the right to have a say and an opinion. Should women go out to work? Well, women have always worked, and women should be able to have a career. And if women don't want to have children and dedicate their life to working, well, they should. But they should know that they're going to die old and lonely, and probably regret it. But if they got told that beforehand and then made that choice anyway, well, that was their choice with the information. And you talked about different forms of feminism, and I write this in the book as well. I think I mentioned 20, 30 different types of feminism. That's a problem with feminism. Feminism means something different to every single woman. And what it basically means to every single woman is feminism means I'm right and I get what I want. That's all feminism means to every individual woman. I'm right and I get what I want. We have feminists who are Marxist, who are communists, who are capitalists. We even had feminists in America in the beginning of last century who were eugenics, who wanted to eradicate certain people because of their genes weren't good enough, and they were feminists. We've got feminists now who believe in Mother Earth and it's all nature and we should go back to living on. So the word feminist now just means I'm a woman, I'm right, and I want everything my way. That's all feminism means.
So that's a really good way for us to end. You mentioned earlier in the stream that most people now are feminists. So what do you think actually makes someone a feminist for our last few minutes?
For me, I think feminism itself has become and always has been, a trade union for other feminists to be more successful and to gain things their competency couldn't deliver. That's what feminism is. Now, what is a feminist? A modern feminist now is a person, and I say person because it's men who call themselves feminists as well. So it's a person who believes men and women are basically the same and therefore should achieve the same outcomes. That's what feminist means now. So a woman can be, a woman can do anything a man can do, and a man can do anything a woman can do to an equal level. And that's completely wrong. We know it's wrong, ranging from physical strength all the way to temperament, to interests, to all sorts of things. And we know it's wrong, but because it's politically correct, we tell our eyes they're lying to us and we believe what we're being told instead of our eyes. Men and women are not, are not the same, are not good enough equally in certain things. We are complementary. That's why we pair off for life, or supposed to be for life. That's why we raise children together, because our children are so complicated. We need two parents. We need a man and a woman because we both bring different things to the table. Men and women are complementary. That's why we get married. That's why we pair off. And when you pair off like that, I call that team amazing.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that was a very, very interesting chat. Thank you very much for coming today. And yeah, for everyone who tuned in, thank you very much. I'm hoping on my next stream that I will be able to figure out this comment thing. I don't know why it says the video is private, but yeah, this is the Rational Female signing off, and tune in next time. Goodbye, everybody.